Hi guys, I'm here today due to popular demand to do a video for you about how to create more music and how to make it more quickly. Basically, there are 6 main points to creating a piece of music a lot quicker. Okay, the most obvious way to make a piece of music quicker is to remix the project that you've previously done. Now, a lot of experienced producers will tell you that they basically just rewrite the same track over and over again, but they just take away some elements and then they just add some new elements. So you wouldn't know it was a remix because they haven't used the same vocal over and over again, unless they were purposely doing a remix. So they've just used a different vocal, they've took a couple of percussive loops out, they've added some new loops in, they've perhaps rearranged the bass pattern or put a new bass line in, but basically they've kept the previous structure of the track, they've kept all their crashes, their cymbals, their builds, etc, etc, even down to their effects chains and their mastering suites and all those things, which really will speed up everything because you've pretty much kind of got most things you need there. You've got the structure, you've just got to add your new elements in there and take away your older elements. Okay, so that way is really the quickest way to make a new piece of music. Okay, and also then the next thing is if you're struggling with a track and you find that you've got writer's block and you just can't seem to get anywhere and you're totally stuck, then resample from your previous work and bring in some of those melodies that you've made before. Also, you know, that can be from MIDI melodies that you've created, or it can be just from samples that you've made melodies with. So you can either export that sound, or you can save the sound in your synthesizer, or you can actually just bring the melody but use a new sound in the synthesizer. So there's various different ways there that you can reuse something from previous tracks where you've really liked that thing that you've done previously, but it can help you to progress in your new piece of work. Okay, the next way is to sample from a record of your choice. Now, you really do need to be quite careful when you're doing sampling from records, not to upset any producers unless you're going to get clearance for the specific samples that you use. There's various ways of sampling from a record. There is either external sampling, which means that you will use that record through your hardware, such as your mixer. You can add various effects to whatever it is that you would like to take from that record, but you must be careful that if you're using a mixer, you don't have any feedback loops in there, you don't have any background hum when getting those samples from that record. The next thing you need to be really careful of when sampling from a record is that there's nothing behind that sound. So you've got a really good quality sample that you can use that is not going to sound muddy or muddy up your mix when you use it in your record. And the next really important thing is that if you're going to use something from a record, such as a percussive loop, or this, say you've sampled a melody from a breakdown, I wouldn't just use just that percussive loop. I would add to that percussive loop. I would make that percussive loop like a collaboration, or I'd make that percussion loop sound like you, because you don't want to sound like the other person, and you don't want to reuse that person's melody unless you've got specifically permission to remix their track. You don't want to upset any people when you're sampling from records unless you've got specific sample clearance. So the best thing to do is take a nice melody with nothing behind it on a breakdown and rearrange that melody and make that melody yours. So that is a very quick and effective way of getting a really nice sound, because you probably might have a lot of records on your hard drive that you really like. There might be records on the internet you could go and find, and you could record those. So just be careful, make sure you don't upset anybody, and make sure your quality of whatever you put in is of superior quality, because otherwise if you put in rubbish quality, then rubbish quality is what you're going to get out. Okay, the next way is to use the internet for free samples. Okay, so the first 3 points here are the most cost-effective ways of how to speed up your production, because resources are paramount to whatever you're doing, and you need to make sure that you've got a folder. That folder is totally organised into bass lines, percussion, kicks, effects, vocals, synthesizers, one shots. You know, that's really important. So there's no excuse today. You can get free samples anywhere on the internet. There's just so many places and ways that you can acquire free samples of any synthesizer that you like. You could pretty much name any synthesizer, like Serum or Nord Lead or a Moog, or there's just absolutely thousands of free samples on the internet and demos of those free samples. So there is no excuse really. There is always resources at your fingertips, which can help you. Okay, the next way is to buy a sample pack. Okay, buying a sample pack, I find, is one of the quickest ways if I'm struggling and I'm finding myself a bit stuck and my samples on my hard drive have become a bit dreary and I've kind of used these things lots of times, and if I buy a sample pack, I will have made music like it's gone out of fashion. I mean, really quickly, you know. The most tracks I've made in a week have been 5 tracks in a week. I made 2 tracks in one day, and no, I didn't compromise on the quality of my tracks. I didn't master the tracks, I just made the arrangements, because it's really important that getting a track out quickly is one thing, but you really do need to make sure that whatever you're putting out is not just quantity that's important, it's quality that's important as well. So always make sure that when you're trying to get stuff out quicker, that you don't cut corners by not paying attention to mastering, etc, etc. So get your arrangement how you want it. Make sure the sounds are not muddied, they're not muddled with other sounds, everything's clean, everything's, you know, of a really good, decent quality when you put it in, because obviously what you put in is what you're going to get out. But anyway, so buying a sample pack obviously is going to cost you a bit more money, but it probably will get you making music like it's going out of fashion a hell of a lot quicker. It certainly does for me anyway, because you can get a lot of melodies already written on the sample pack for you that you can just rearrange or add to or take away from, which is always really helpful. The next way is to build and save and reuse your mastering suite. So obviously when you finish a track you need to master it. Now this is not going to stop you from having to master that track, not at all. You still need to meticulously go through every single pattern and sound that you have used and make sure that there is nothing behind it, make sure that there is no clicks or pops, or that you've definitely EQ'd the sound properly, you've got the right amount of effects on that sound, etc. So you always need to pay attention to detail. That's paramount to get a quality track out. Do not cut corners just because you want to get it out like that. Make sure that you pay attention to every single article that is featured in that piece of music. Okay, so if you use an effects suite and a mastering suite that you've previously built from your previous tracks, obviously that's going to speed things up. So you're already going to have a compressor there, you're already going to have, you know, X amount of space that you know is headroom on your volume. You're already going to have certain effects or reverbs or things that you like to put on your mix. Obviously that you can then go back and you can tweak those things, and you know that will be a lot quicker for you. So That's helpful. And the last thing really is to build and to reuse effects chains throughout when you're making a track. It's really important that whatever effects chains that you make, save them. Always save your effects chains and make sure that you reuse them, because they're so useful, you know. And if you've spent a good half an hour or an hour just tweaking your effects and your delays, and you've got some chorus or you've got a bit of distortion or whatever it is, that's your time there. That's taking you time to create that effects chain. Don't waste that time, okay? You can save that time and you can take that time off your next production. So don't ever waste your time making effects chains and not saving them. I think that can probably be a very common mistake with new producers in the scene, is that they don't save their effects chains and they don't save their mastering suites, and that has taken them a lot of time to create. So it's really paramount that you save every single effects chain that you make so that you can reuse it in your next track, especially, you know, like when you're making vocals and stuff like that. So then, you know, you've always got, you know, your 10 specific vocal effects chains that you can drop on any vocal, and you might even find that you can even apply them to other stuff as well. So it's really important anyway to make sure that you save your effects chains. So I think really these are the 6 most important points. Obviously you might have gone through all of these points, you might have got tons of resources, you might be sitting there, you've got sample packs coming out of your ear holes, but you've still got writer's block, and you're sitting there and you're thinking, I've done everything but I just can't finish this track, it's just so difficult. Okay, it's a little bit like trying to make a puzzle when you write a piece of music, and sometimes you just can't find the right pieces to finish the puzzle. So there's various ways to go about that. One way is to just leave it and come back to the track. Okay, that's not going to finish the track quicker, okay, but then you can get on with doing other pieces of music and you can be finishing them quicker, so you're more productive. That will possibly make your productivity a little bit better than just thinking, oh, okay, I'm really stuck now, I can't do this piece of music, so I'm just going to not do anything. That is the worst thing that you can do, okay? If you're really struggling on a piece of music, you've done everything that you think that you can, but you just can't seem to go forward, okay? You might have spent a day, you've tried 20 different things. Stop and do something else, do a different piece of music. Don't stop making music, okay? As long as, you know, it's not affecting your hearing too badly, don't stop making music, okay? Do something else, do a different track, start something else, come back to what you were doing, okay? You're going to say, but that didn't help me finish that track quicker. No, it didn't, but it speeded up your productivity by making more music, okay? So that is one way to get around writer's block. Now, at a later date, you might find that you actually got more samples since then, and you've been able to come back to that track, and you've suddenly just got what you needed, and it just clicks into place, which that can happen quite a lot, actually. But another thing is, I mean, if you have a track and you're really struggling to finish it, and it doesn't matter, I mean, you've tried everything to finish it and you just can't seem to get it to do what you want it to do, okay? You've got this sound. Now, often I find what causes this problem is I've got a certain sound and I love that sound, and I'm really trying to make that sound do what I want it to do to fit in that track, okay? And I've been there for like 2 or 3 hours using this sound, restructuring this sound, and still it's just not quite doing what I wanted it to do, and I'm getting pretty annoyed now because it's taking a lot of my time. Forget the sound, okay? Forget the sound. What you can do, there's a couple of different things you can do. Now, if it's the sound that's the problem, use the same pattern you've written and put a new sound underneath, okay? If that doesn't solve your problem, then I would probably suggest to ditch that idea. I know it's horrible because you've spent hours and you really like that sound, but it's just not doing what you want it to do. Okay, ditch the sound. I know it's horrible. It's horrible to say that because you've just spent hours, but you're not getting anywhere. So it's not helping you. Okay, ditch the sound, get a new sound and try again. Again, if you're struggling, use some melodies off a sample CD. Go back to previous tracks. Think in your mind, what track, even if it's not one of your own tracks, what melody, what track do I think sounds similar to what I'm doing now? What might go really well? It might not be your own track, it might be somebody else's track, but think in your mind, what track might make this, or is really similar to this, what I'm doing now, okay? And then there's a couple of things you can do. You can either go and recreate the sound from somebody else's track, so recreate their melody. Now, I write a lot of my music by ear. You might not do that, so it might not always be that easy for you to go and listen to that and recreate it. I personally would suggest that if you don't do music by ear, it's probably a good idea to start, because it really does help you if you're stuck on a melody and you can't do it. So just go and listen and try to learn what key that is in, or try to learn what sounds a similar pitch on your computer. So maybe play it at the same time as that melody. Play the pitch until it sounds like it's in unison. Okay, just use your ears to learn. I like that melody off that record. It might fit in my track if I remade that melody. So don't be daunted by you've spent 3 hours on the same sound and you're not getting anywhere and that's it, you've just had enough. Now, as I said, don't let that stifle your productivity. Just go and do something else, or use a different sound and keep your melody, or ditch your melody and use a different sound and start again. Okay? It's just a suggestion. You might hate me for them suggestions, say, well, I'm keeping my sound, so screw you. Fair enough, it might slow you down. You might get there in the end. Personally, if I'd spent about 3 hours on a sound, I'd probably had enough of it by then and would have ditched it. But that's just me. So anyway, I hope everything that I've gone through with you today will help you to significantly improve your productivity. I hope this video has been beneficial to you guys, and if you could please like and subscribe underneath, that would be really helpful. Please leave any comments or any ideas underneath of what kind of topics you would like me to cover in future videos that you might find helpful. I hope this kind of boosts your productivity in the future and helps you to get more tracks out there. Okay, thanks for watching, guys.